Hello and welcome to News, Games, and More, IGN's daily news show, right here almost every day at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We got a great show for you today, but before we get started, if you're watching on YouTube, you should see an attached charity module down here where you can donate directly to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which we highly recommend. Otherwise, check out the description for more info. Joining me today, Casey DeFreitas, Matt Kim, and Ryan McCaffrey in his first ever News, Games, and More appearance. Ryan, awesome. You're here. You're on News, Games, and More. Why? What's taking you so long? You've been here for months, man.
That intro music makes me feel like I should be playing Luminous.
Yeah, it does have a very luminous vibe. Yeah. Speaking of luminous, look at how uneven my lighting is today.
Makes me feel like I should be at a bar.
I know. I just want everybody to know that I am actually lit by the power of the sun. We got a lot of news that I want to talk to you guys about today. First and foremost, coming out of nowhere last night, Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning sort of got leaked and then was later confirmed this morning. So originally, this game was released back in 2012. This was leaked last night on the Microsoft Store and then confirmed on their official Twitter account this morning. Expected release date August 11th, 2020. But I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think a re-reckoning is? Can anybody speak to a re-reckoning?
It's just when the first reckoning fails, and you have to do it again.
Okay. Second try.
A second try. Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
It's when Yosemite Sam ponders something again, or
okay.
Re-reckoning.
Right.
I'll leave.
So
I'll go.
This, it's okay. We brought you on for a specific reason, and dad jokes is it. So well done. I think you're doing great. This new Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning package seems to include all the DLC, including the Teeth of Naros and the Legend of Dead Kel, and will have improved graphical fidelity. Ryan, you were talking to us a little bit earlier about playing Kingdoms of Amalur back in the day. You want to tell us a little bit about this game and what makes it so special that it would get a re-reckoning?
I mean, it was a very good game back at the time. You actually you can play it right now. If you have a copy of it on 360, it's compatible on Xbox One, so it is still playable. I'm curious what this new version the little tweaks that they're doing, how it'll stack up and how it'll feel in 2020. But when it came out, it was a really good Fable style game. It was kind of the Fable 2 before, or the Fable 3, I guess, before Fable 3. It's a little, it's hack and slashy. It leans more toward the action side of the role-playing genre, but it's high fantasy. There's some cool areas to go to. There's some nice character development you can do as far as your gear and items and stuff. And it's a neat world. Todd McFarlane worked on the art direction, and then Ken Ralston from The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion was involved in this game too. They had some good talent. Arguably, history has overshadowed this game as far as the development of the company. Like the story behind the game has kind of lived on probably more infamously than the game itself, but the game is fun.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because when we were talking about what stories to put in the show earlier today, I mentioned to you that I only know this game. I didn't play it back when it came out. I only know this game because of the controversy that sort of surrounded the development. And despite having this dream team, like you mentioned, Todd McFarlane and the developer for the production designer for the Elder Scrolls games. There's also R.A. Salvatore in the mix, who's like a famous, very well-known fantasy writer. Yeah. And so it has this sort of like dream team approach, but the actual development was pretty controversial back in the day because it was originally developed by 38 Studios and published by EA. And then there's a bunch of like rights that got changed in the middle of or after the game was released. And then the biggest thing about it was the state of Rhode Island had given a bunch of funding towards the actual studio itself, and then ended up having to take a lawsuit out against 38 Studios after the game was released because of like all this different like litigation that happened around it. So it was actually like a pretty controversial release, despite the fact that it was a very good game that people liked. IGN gave it a 9. So
Yeah, if I remember it correctly, there was another game in the works that just never ended up going anywhere and getting off the ground. That this was kind of the, hey, let's get Amalur going, let's get a game out from as this new development studio. They were big, huge games. They had a different name before 38 Studios, but anyway, they had an MMO version in the works that this was supposed to just kind of be the warm up for. But then obviously the MMO never happened. There was the taxpayers of Rhode Island ended up losing a lot of money. They had extended a tax benefit to the studio to have them there as a job creation incentive. And then when the studio went under, because the finances were just super rickety and collapsed, the whole thing collapsed. It certainly left a black mark on Kurt Schilling's reputation, which he would go on to continue defiling his own reputation, but that's another story. And then the of course the lawsuit that followed, and that they never got reimbursed. Rhode Island never got a lot of that money back, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think as disappointing as that is as kind of tragic as that whole story is, it totally overshadowed the game itself, because I don't remember this game coming out to these reviews. Like looking back on it today, I was so surprised to see that the game had so many like really super positive reviews, and people in our comments section, even right now, Mike Fury is saying that he put 120 hours of it on Steam and another 30 hours on 360. This is kind of a beloved sort of niche game, but just completely overshadowed by the unfortunate history around it. Casey, Matt, did you ever get a chance to play any Kingdoms of Amalur?
I did when it first came out. I never finished it, but this game was right up my alley. I think I just got busy with other things. I remember, oddly enough, talking about this game when I was in college at my internship and during the radio show about all of these controversies. And I remember them closing because they couldn't pay back $1 million loan or something similar to that.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, something along those lines. But as Ryan was saying, I did have a lot of fun with it. I'm excited to go back, even if the name is completely ridiculous. THQ Nordic needs to stop adding re before their game names. I know Brendan Graber tweeted something before with re, so many different names that they're coming out with, and they need to quit it.
What was the Darksiders remaster that was so
Definitive Edition?
That's not the worst one. What is it? What was the one that I'm thinking of?
Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered.
Yep.
Yes, which is like a crime against vocabulary.
I mean, I hear you say that, Ryan, but you opened up the show with a Yosemite Sam joke, so I just wonder, I feel like that kind of pun in a title is in your wheelhouse, and here you are saying that that's not for you. Yeah, it's a little confusing. Casey, I'd imagine that this game would have been something that you would have sunk a lot of hours into, because I having not played it myself, it's high fantasy, which I know you're into, but then also probably a lot of dragons, and I know how you feel about dragons.
Yeah, I actually didn't get far enough in the game to see any dragons, but maybe I will.
A lot of people play games up to a certain set of hours, certain number of hours before they decide whether they like it or not. But for Casey DeFreitas, you got to have a dragon within that first initial 10 hours, or else she's just going to bounce.
Yeah, I'm just going to quit. Yeah. I'm kidding.
No dragons, no buy. I get it.
But no, I think it was I was borrowing the game from someone in college, so I had it for a limited amount of time, and I never went out and bought it myself. I did that with a lot of games in high school and college when I couldn't just go buy games whenever I wanted.
Yes, back when we used discs that we could hand around to our friends and loan people games.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's so funny. I started replaying Dishonored 2 last week, and it took me forever to figure out why I couldn't find it on my PlayStation. And then I realized that it's one of 3 games that I actually own a hard copy of, and I had to go track it down somewhere in the back of my closet. I was like, oh yeah, I ended up having to buy the actual physical disc of that game. Kingdoms of Amalur coming out in August. But that's not the only game that THQ is working on. Matt, I believe you put this note in here that they have 80 games in development as of 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, that's something that they announced back at a financial call last year. And it's 80 games, but it's not all new games. These count, right? These remasters count, and they certainly have a lot of them in the pipeline. They've got SpongeBob Rehydrated coming out. SpongeBob Bikini Bottom
Battle for
Rehydrated.
Bikini
See,
and-
that
Bottom.
one I'm on board for. That's good
Right.
remaster
But that's a word.
titling right there. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But like, anyways, all of these count. So don't let 80 games in the pipeline make it sound like they have a ton of new stuff coming down.
Hey, people
That's
are
fair.
really
That's
excited
fair.
for SpongeBob.
They really are.
That game,
That's nuts.
that game's going to fund all the rest of their games. This game's going to sell huge. Every time we
Yeah.
put something up on IGN about that game, it blows up. It's just like people want that. They love SpongeBob.
Yep.
That's true. Chat, tell us if you guys are excited for SpongeBob, because I missed that game when it came out on the GameCube, but I know it's like beloved now, and I'm actually really excited to do like a character 3D platformer in 2020. I feel like that's the kind of chaotic energy that I need right now. So
Yeah.
A couple of things that I wanted to point out from the comment section on IGN on this article. First of all, Anubis Zero over on IGN says, "I love these re-releases of full packages of games that I missed out on back then." And like, I'm fully on board with this statement. I think one of the coolest things about re-releasing your game, 7-8 years down the line, is the ability to include all this DLC, and then you're buying into a much larger game at a much lower price.
Yeah.
I should
It
hope
looks
so
nice.
after 8 years.
Yeah, it's been a while, huh? And then Cuttlebag, which is just a great username. Cuttlebag says, "I feel like Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning might be one of the most underrated games out there. I've enjoyed many a night playing this game, but I've never come across anyone else in my many gamer friends who's played the game or even heard of it before, and when I've talked about it. So apparently I wasn't the only one that was sort of in the dark on this game. Nat, it seems like maybe you missed out on Kingdoms of Amalur too. So will you and I be playing this in August, do you think?"
I'm honestly, when Ryan said it was a Fable-like game that actually unsold me from it, I'm not a huge fan of the Fable series, and so I'm not.
I thought we were
sorry.
friends, Matt.
I know. I'm
You
sorry.
don't
Maybe
you don't love an action RPG?
I'm not really. I think in most of my cases, other than Dark Souls, I've had a hard time finding a game that really balances RPG and action mechanics in a way that I like. So basically, only From Software has done it. So like to me personally, and so one day maybe next phase.
But I mean, Matt does bring up a good point, though. I mean, this is an 8-year-old game, and they have made a couple tweaks to it. But I'm kind of curious. It was liked, as you said, Zach. It got 8s and 9s back in 2012. But I kind of wonder how it's going to feel as a quote unquote new release in 2020. Hopefully, it'll hold up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of we've seen that happen a number of times where people are very, very excited about a remaster or re-release, only to discover that they haven't exactly aged as well as they had hoped. So I did want to just point out one thing here from the chat. Grant Larkin says, "Sorry to break it to you, Casey, but SpongeBob is unlikely to have any dragons." I know, it's a bummer.
That's okay. Wait.
Yeah.
Would you consider? What about a sea dragon? Like seahorses?
That works.
They've got those.
Yeah,
they got
that
sea
might work.
dragons.
Yeah, I'll take that. Well, you know what's almost like a dragon, you guys? An alien. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, good segue.
Thanks very much. Thank you. I've been working on them. We got news, some very weird news about the next film in the Alien franchise earlier today, and that's that the next Alien movie is going to be about eggs. So according to an interview with the LA Times, Ridley Scott thinks that the next Alien film should explore the origin of the xenomorph eggs. This is his quote. "I still think there's a lot of mileage in Alien, but I think you'll have to have the series re-evolve. What I always thought when I was making the first one was, why would a creature like this be made, and why was it traveling, and in what I always thought of kind of a warcraft, which was carrying a cargo of these eggs. What was the purpose of the vehicle, and what was the purpose of the eggs? That's the thing to question. Who, why, and for what purpose is the next idea, I think." This is a crazy statement to me about these films, that now the next one is going to be about eggs. Are you guys fans of the Alien franchise?
Yes, but I fell off hard with Covenant. I thought Covenant was ridiculous in like the worst kind of way.
Okay. Say
you
more
know,
about that.
Okay, here's what it is, right?
Okay.
With the first Alien, I like the idea that in this vast universe, you can just stumble upon like the most hostile planet with like the deadliest life form, right? That's like a eldritch kind of fear of the unknown kind of thing. But then with Prometheus, like when Ridley Scott revisited with Prometheus and Covenant and tried to like flesh out the lore a bit, it became more of this whole like, what if man created the deadliest bioweapon in the world, and what if that makes man the deadliest predator, right? And then the Covenant was like, oh, actually, it's what if a robot created by man created the deadliest predator, and the creation of this weapon is just an extension of his daddy issues. And I'm just like, I don't know. I was more into it when it was like this like unknowable monster in the universe, and not something that like was about man creating its own destruction or whatever.
Okay, but I respect your opinion, and I totally hear what you're saying. But what about this? What if the movie was about an egg?
Yeah.
Well,
Are you on board now?
No.
But not like a regular
That
egg,
sounds
like a
awful.
scary egg.
When I
That
first
sounds
read
awful,
this, I was
honestly. I'm
like,
gonna be honest with you,
is
this sounds
this-
awful.
I think it could be interesting. I don't know. When I first read this, I was like, this going to be like a what came first, the chicken or the egg scenario? And I realized now that was really stupid, and I shouldn't have thought that.
You're over there, Ryan. You're in the pun department. Yeah.
But I don't know. It could be interesting. Okay, look, hear me out. Even if you don't think Prometheus or Covenant weren't that good, they were at least interesting. So we can at least expect this movie to be interesting, regardless if it is good or bad. And I will still watch it because of that.
Well, as Prometheus and Covenant showed, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
No,
Oh,
boy.
That's a good idea, right? You should be on more often.
Yeah, it's the end of the day. I'm done, guys. It's like this is what you get.
Everybody's just a little bit toasted. That's all right.
It's fine.
I think that there's some interesting stuff in both of those movies, but like in the same way that the Star Wars prequels are about like young Darth Vader, like nobody, like I can't say nobody, but I'm not really interested in like the progenitor race of these creatures. Like I think the mystery behind them and the fact that they're just these like stone cold killers with no real background, no real history, it was what makes them so scary. And I think they get less and less scary with each entry. Now just taking a look at the series itself, the original film, 3 sequels to that, 2 prequels, and now Ridley Scott is talking about how he wants to make 2 more Covenant sequels, which would fall sometime between the Covenant film and the original Alien. And it's just like you got to reach a point of saturation. There was that Neil Blomkamp was assigned on to direct one of those films, and then eventually he dropped out or was removed or something. But the stuff that he was doing was really interesting, bringing back Ripley and things like that. But I'm kind of with you, Matt. I think those movies are getting like further and further away from what makes them Alien films in my mind.
It's like explaining the joke, you know?
Right.
Well, it's almost like
you're exactly right.
Like Heath Ledger's Joker didn't need a backstory. It was just like, here's this guy. Wow, he's like just this anarchist maniac, and Batman has to deal with him. But it can be done, as we saw with the most recent Joker film. Like there can be a backstory there that's interesting and makes for an interesting take on the character. And I think Ridley Scott still, arguably, and I think a lot of viewers' minds, just hasn't quite locked in on that super interesting backstory of the universe quite yet.
Ryan, here's a question.
Sorry.
Oh, so go ahead, Matt.
I meant to say I am a huge like Ridley Scott fan, and I still like watch his movies. But I think he should maybe give it a rest with Alien.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do some other stuff too. Ryan, this is a question for you. I feel like this pertains to you. So Hydra Tower in the comments here says, this is exactly how I feel about what they did with the Forerunners in Halo. You're a Halo guy. Do you feel like that's an apt comparison?
Yeah, more or less. I think that is pretty fair, because Forerunners were built up quite a bit over the original trilogy, and now they've kind of been explored, and it's like, all right, maybe this hasn't played out quite as interestingly as hoped. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable video game equivalent.
Our comment section was pretty split on this news coming from Ridley Scott about the eggs. The Echelon Kitty, or third Echelon Kitty, 17 on IGN says, Ridley Scott single-handedly dismantled whatever glorious return this franchise could have had because of greed and jealousy. It's really pathetic. Blomkamp could have done something wild. Such a shame. But then on the other side of the argument, you've got Son of Samus saying, can't wait. I like Prometheus and Covenant, and I think they were some of the best horror movies of that year. A return to form for the franchise. Keep going. So, done a lot of research, and it turns out that some people really like the Alien films and some people don't.
All right, I did remember this correctly. Neil Blomkamp was going to be doing an Alien sequel, like a proper Alien sequel,
Yes.
not any sort of
That's
prequel thing. So, yeah, and he was also, following up on the topic from a second ago, he was also supposed to do the Halo film that never happened. So poor Neil just doesn't, like, he's made cool films, don't get me wrong, but these big IPs that Neil just can't quite reach. Somebody somebody just help him out. Give him a big IP.
It's all a rich tapestry, So we're going to move on from that, and we're going to move over.
Real
go ahead,
quick, I just wanted to mention, you have
Sure.
this note that Xenomorph is now owned by Disney, so that's weird.
Oh,
there
yeah.
actually used to be an Alien ride in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland, but it closed in 2003 and was turned into a Stitch ride instead. But there used to be an Alien ride at Disney back in the day.
Okay.
That's so weird. Before
cool.
they were owned by Disney. That's so strange.
Like a licensing thing, probably.
They try to make it as creepy as possible.
Was it good? Did you write it?
I only wrote it when it was Stitch and not Alien, which is way less scary because, are you afraid of Stitch? No.
I mean, it depends
you should be, but I'm not.
Right?
Yeah.
Stitch seems like he could be a pretty scary dude. So, okay, we're going to move on. Next story up on the docket: GTA and Red Dead Online shut down in honor to honor George Floyd. On Twitter, the Rockstar Twitter account tweets out, Black Lives Matter, to honor the legacy of George Floyd today, 6/4/2020, from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, we'll be shutting down access to our online games, Grand Theft Auto Online and Red Dead Online. I think this is a really cool thing for them to do. On this show, we talk about obviously we talk about gaming news, which is tough to do sometimes in especially times like this. And part of that show is going into the comments and reading the comments, and turns out the comments on this particular article were sort of a cesspool. So I want to say that if it bothers you that your video games are being shut down, maybe get your priorities straight. This is a really great time for you to maybe take into consideration giving a donation to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which is a donation or a charity that we are looking for donations for in this very stream right here today. I didn't really want to dwell on this story because I think it's pretty cut and dry. I think Rockstar is doing a good thing by shutting down their games. Does anybody else have any opinions on what's going on here?
Just that, I mean, for me, I think it's 2 hours. All right, we're talking about a 2-hour window, which is I think the point that Rockstar is trying to make, or at least the way I interpret it, I'll put it that way, is to use that time to just think about what's going on in the news and maybe just focus on that. On this issue for just a little while, and then your game will be back up before you know it. It's a small thing to ask of gamers, I think. So I hope a lot of them took advantage of it.
Yeah, I assume that if somehow you hadn't heard about this up to now, having your game shut off, logging in and seeing this may have raised awareness and then incited people to maybe do some research on their own.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I think considering how popular Grand Theft Auto Online is even if you didn't hear about it, I imagine it would be something like you go log into the game's down, maybe you're angry for a bit, but then you sort of think about why that is, and I think that's a good way to direct people towards the news.
Yeah, I think so too. And while you're out there doing your research, if you're taking that time to maybe you're researching where you can donate your money, consider donating to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. You can do so right here in our chat. We'd be greatly appreciative if you would help us out there. No real way to transition out of that one. I can't really do a smooth one. So we're just going to talk about Project Cars 3. Project Cars 3 got announced today. Developer Slightly Mad Studios is I'm sorry, it did get announced yesterday. Developer Slightly Mad Studios. Oh, Matt, this is okay. So there is something I did want to talk about with this game, even though I'm not a known racing fan. I looked at our IGN.com announcement article to write up this story for News, Games, and More today. And I saw that your byline was on this article. Correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So you decided to open this article with developer Slightly Mad Studios is back in the driver's seat.
Yes.
So now we're 3 for 3 on pun fans in this chat.
That's like, but when you put it on the site on IGN.com like that, that's a kangaroo court fine right there, man.
I mean, that's forever.
Exactly, right? Yeah, I mean, what else would I do? You know, Project Cars 3 was announced. That's boring. That's lame as hell.
Slightly Mad Studios is back in the driver's seat, hitting the gas on the next installment of their asphalt eating adventure.
I'm giving it a thumbs up.
I stand by my editorial decisions on that news piece.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm just giving you some shit here. Yeah. So they came back with this surprise announcement for Project Cars 3. The next game in the popular racing series. So this game features highly customizable sandbox, different cars, tracks, and weather conditions that can be mixed and matched. And there's also a career mode designed to help more casual fans. I'm not a Project Cars 3 guy. I'm not much of a racing guy myself, but I know, Ryan, you play a lot of racing games. You've done some Project Cars in the past. What's got you excited for Project Cars 3?
Well, so this one, for those who might be wondering, like, yeah, I could go for a car game right about now. This Project Cars skews toward the more simulation end of the spectrum, along with Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo. So it's at that side as opposed to the Need for Speed, more arcadey end. So it's Slightly Mad Studios has a really, really impressive track record over the years. They were assembled a while ago out of the ashes of a number of other racing game studios that have come and gone over the years. I mean, there's weirdly, a lot of them, there's an incredible pool of racing game talent in the UK. And there always has been. I mean, there used to be Bizarre Creations. Codemasters is there. You've got Playground Games doing Forza Horizon. You've got Slightly Mad. There's just an incredible wealth of talent in the UK that's really good at making racing games, interestingly enough. But this, I will say, what's taken the wind out of my sails about Project Cars 3 is that we're so close to next gen, and like the console, you want to see, the car games are always like the prettiest, you know, among the prettiest games, and you can almost always count on a beautiful car game to launch a console with, and we're probably going to get that with the Xbox Series X with the inevitable Forza Motorsport 8. But with this is only, at least for now, only announced for current gen, which I was kind of like, oh, well, that's a little bit of a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that same sentiment in the comments quite a bit, Ryan, that, you know, a lot of times racing games are used to showcase like what next gen hardware can really pull off. And, you know, it seems like maybe a missed opportunity for Project Cars to launch on PS4, Xbox One, when they could have held out for Series X or PS5 and gotten an extra little shine.
I do have a question. I know Series X is planning on giving like a boost to games that are then going to be like old games that are coming out on the Series X. Do you think we'll see that for Project Cars 3 at least? Like, at least there's something?
Mm.
Good question. I mean, yeah, it's up to, I mean, the system does automatically do stuff according to Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And then if they want to tailor it more and make it Series X optimized from there, which like Assassin's Creed Valhalla is getting that. Yeah. So that they haven't said anything about that yet, but I sure hope so. I really, really hope they do that. And I think the odds probably tilt in favor of that happening.
Cool.
That makes a lot of sense. Casey, question for you here in the chat coming from Thomas Ferrone. He says, did anyone else catch that when their names came up on the screen and their job titles were displayed, Casey just had Casey DeFreitas as her job title, which is just her name? Can you comment on that? Do you have anything to say about that?
My job is to represent all the Caseys in the world with my exact spelling, with the last name DeFreitas with a capital F. I think there's
Mhm.
2 of us, and I think I'm doing a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
would
so.
say, I would say, like, if I was ranking people that are great at being Casey DeFreitas, you'd be pretty near at the top. So
Pretty
in
near the
that,
top.
I feel like
I
you're
appreciate that,
justified
Zach.
to have. Yeah, I feel like you're justified to have that as your job title.
Mhm.
Casey DeFreitas doing Casey DeFreitas at IGN.
I know my real
Uh,
job title is editor, if you're curious.
So back to Project Cars. Production director Peter Morrish had a quote here that I thought was pretty interesting. A whole metagame and a whole career system has been implemented to really support newcomers to the franchise, and those that are maybe further down the continuum towards more casual, more pick up and play people than the usual simhead crowd. Ryan, having played Project Cars before, did you feel like it was particularly lacking in metagame or career mode stuff?
I mean, I guess that depends on your perspective. Like the hardcore simulation racing fans would say, no, it doesn't need that. I like that it's hardcore. But
Mm-hmm.
then, but from a broader market perspective, it certainly makes sense for them to have some ease of entry kind of stuff for players that aren't just veteran racing game hardcore enthusiasts. So yeah, can't blame them for having an additive feature like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Stone Cold Man 123 on IGN says, kind of speaking to this point as well, he says, unlike Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsports, Project Cars has a habit of throwing you in the deep end from the start. A new campaign with a difficulty curve sounds better. So it seems like maybe people are on board with this idea of kind of easing in with a campaign mode, which I think is pretty cool. I also found this comment from Mark Lar to you on IGN pretty nice. He just said, great news. The game was announced,
Agreed.
and he just thought that was great news. So,
Yeah,
you
good
know,
for them,
simple,
right?
straight to the point. Just really
Yeah.
excited to see a new Project Cars 3.
They know what they want.
Checking the chat. Just checking the chat right here. Quick like to see if anybody has some Project Cars 3 impressions. KTK says, Project Cars 3 reminds me of Gran Turismo, which, yes, they're both sim racing games. That's a great comparison to have been made there. Okay. That looks like about all the conversation happening on Project Cars 3 over here in chat. So we're going to move on to one of News Games and More's favorite topics in the last few weeks. It just wouldn't be an NG Plus show if we didn't talk about The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, right.
And today's Last of Us 2 news is that it's being accused of copying an artist. Specifically in this newest trailer. Lottie Kestner, who's a Seattle-based singer-songwriter, posted to Twitter a message for Naughty Dog and its vice president, Neil Druckmann, pointing out that the cover of True Faith used in the trailer is a replica of a cover which she released in 2011 on her album Stolen. That song is also a cover of a New Order song. So there's a lot of layers to this story, a lot of weird stuff happening behind the scenes. Her tweet says, Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog, are you aware that the True Faith cover that you put in your Last of Us 2 trailer is a replica of my cover that came out 10 years ago? I wrote original parts not in the original song that are copied exactly by whoever covered it. I'm heartbroken, which is disappointing to hear. Matt, you sound like you had something to say.
No, I mean, it's a confusing situation because it's they're claiming that they ripped off a cover that they did of someone else's song, which makes legally a very strange area to be in. And it reminds me of the you guys remember when nerd singer-songwriter Jonathan Colton had that little thing with Glee?
Yeah.
Where he did a cover of Baby Got Back, and then Glee did a cover of Baby Got Back, and then he accused Glee of ripping off his cover of that song, and he cited a specific word change that he made in his version that Glee also used. And so if they were really just if they were gonna cover Sir Mix-a-Lot, they wouldn't have made that same word choice decision that he did, and that was a weird situation then too. And I don't think it ever got resolved because ultimately in the end Sir Mix-a-Lot is the one who owns the rights to the song. So
Right. I'm actually glad that you brought that up, Matt, because we actually went back to his quote for that in this article, Jonathan Colton, and he said, talking about that similar situation, he said, "It seems that because of the compulsory license that I purchased when I made a cover of the song, the arrangement itself is not protected under copyright, although it's the darkest gray of the gray areas of the law. While there may be some weird offshoot of the law, it doesn't seem like something where a little guy could sue to get any satisfaction." So I think you're right on the money there, right?
Yeah. And I did look into this, like the legality behind all this and the laws and copyright. And there are basically two different ways you can go about getting the rights to a song to make an arrangement. You can either go directly to the source, but this could be complicated because you need the rights to all parts of the song. Like you need the rights to the lyrics and the arrangement and the music and the tune. And there's a lot of legal stuff behind that. Or you can do the compulsory license where you don't have to talk to anyone. You just owe royalties if your arrangement or remix makes any money off of it. You're allowed to distribute it. You're allowed to do whatever you want as long as for private use. And it seems like this is the same issue that Jonathan Colton ran into, where the artist who did the cover of the New Order song has the compulsory license, and that doesn't protect her arrangement at all. So basically, companies like Sony can purchase the actual rights to the song and then be inspired by little guys like this making arrangements and then just take it. And there are no legal repercussions because she doesn't legally own that arrangement. So that's it. She can't really do anything, but she can put Sony on and Naughty Dog on the public court, even if she can't actually go to legal court about it. Yeah, she can put them on blast, because even if it is legal what they did, it's not cool.
It's uncool.
Yeah,
it is uncool.
You know, the kids do say that, and I was wondering, Matt. Well, the whole panel. I don't mean to just single you out, but the question is, why can't this game catch a break? You know, I feel like every day there's some new story about The Last of Us 2 and Naughty Dog, and it seems to me like in my, you know, I've only been in the industry like 5 years. Maybe Ryan, you're a better person to answer this question, but have you ever seen a AAA game take this kind of beating during the home stretch? I feel like in the last 2 months, you know, The Last of Us just can't catch a break. There's constantly stuff about it in the news. And what do you think the ramifications are in that?
I mean, this one's self-inflicted. They did this one to themselves by choosing the arrangement this way. But I mean,
well, sure, yeah.
Ultimately, this game is going to sell as probably. I don't think they're going to lose a single sale, if I can speak. Yeah, it's 440. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think this game is going to suffer in the slightest for everything that it's been through. I mean, Sony themselves said, hey, the story spoiler leaks didn't impact our pre-order numbers at all, although I don't necessarily know quite how you'd measure that. But The Last of Us 2, this is probably going to end up being a case of any publicity is good publicity for them in this case. It's just more awareness for the game, and it's out in a couple weeks, and everybody's going to be like, hey, now that Last of Us thing's finally out, I guess I better check it out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like, I think that, you know, we've seen a lot of comments on social, a lot of comments on IGN and elsewhere that's, you know, say things along the line of like, well, now that I know all these secrets, or now that I've heard what the game is about, you know, I'm not going to buy that. But then Sony coming out and saying something like, hey, this didn't affect pre-orders at all, wasn't surprising to me, because there's a whole generalist audience that knows The Last of Us as a brand or has seen the trailer and wants to purchase it, right? But I guess, you know, Ryan, you've been in the industry a long time. Can you think of a AAA game that you've seen this sort of like just this kind of rocky road to release? Like, it seems like this one in particular has had not necessarily setbacks, but just like more negative media coverage in the last 6 weeks than any game that I can remember.
I mean, the immediate historical thing that comes to mind, which is it's in a whole other realm, is Duke Nukem Forever, which did end up coming out, but it was for years and years. I mean, it went from sort of a frustration for fans. Hey, we're excited about this game. Hey, where's this game? Oh, you changed engines again. Okay, when's it coming out? To it eventually absolutely became a parody of itself, until then finally it did get finished and released, and it came out, and it really wasn't that great of a game. That's one of those games. I'm happy I played it just for as a like living piece of video game history. Like I got to play this game, but yeah, like that's Duke Nukem's in a whole other league. I can't think of any really more contemporary examples of a game that's kind of been for one way or the other sort of just dragged around a little bit the way that The Last of Us 2 has ahead of its release, particularly a game as high caliber and highly anticipated as The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, we've talked about the game a lot on this show. We've talked about this game a lot on all IGN channels, all avenues of IGN, and I hope that people are loving it, and I hope that it has a great release. I don't wish anybody ill will. It's tough to see, it's tough to see a team and a franchise like this like take a beating on the very last, coming up to the finish line. I guess is what I'm trying to say. So moving on, Studio Ghibli, famed animation studio, announces that its first ever fully CGI film will be coming in winter this year to NHK in Japan. The movie's called Aya and the Witch, and it's based on the 2011 children's book Earwig and the Witch, written by Diane Wynne Jones, who also wrote Howl's Moving Castle. Director Hayao Miyazaki, who basically is Studio Ghibli, his name is synonymous with it, founder and overseer, will oversee the project with his son, Goro, directing. You guys Ghibli fans, what do you think of a fully CG Studio Ghibli film? Yeah.
I kind of wish they would stick with traditional animation just because of how it's becoming more rare with animated films. And I think that their style and everything about Ghibli and Miyazaki films are amazing, but I also don't doubt that it will look fantastic. I mean, they recently, I say they, just in general, there have recently been films that probably would have done well as an anime film, but have done CGI instead, like the recent Dragon Quest movie, and that movie looked really good. So I don't doubt that it'll be great, but I'm kind of mourning the further steps away from traditional animation that we're not getting from, like, for example, Disney anymore.
Shout out to our producers who chose Howl's Moving Castle for the B-roll here. This is actually the best Studio Ghibli movie. I won't be taking any questions at this time. Matt, what do you think?
Okay.
I wonder if you're seeing something different than me. I'm seeing Spirited Away.
Spirited Away. Oh no. You're right. I got it wrong. I'm sorry. This is Spirited Away. I don't know why I thought it was Howl. My bad.
Embarrassing.
They're both equally fantastic movies, though.
No, I think Casey's right. I think, weirdly enough, a lot of really good-looking CGI movies have been coming out of Japan lately, like the Dragon Quest one, and there's also a Lupin one that I haven't seen, but I've seen trailers of on social media, and every time I see it, I'm just like, that looks pretty good. And then even in North America, right, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was gorgeous, and
yes.
if you told me like 10 years ago that I would absolutely fall in love with the CGI movie and say it's one of the best anime movies of all time, I'd probably not believe you, but yeah, I don't know. I have faith. I think they're a good studio, obviously, and CGI looks good now as opposed to 7 years ago where it didn't. I'm interested. I'm curious.
Well, I'll have you know that the hit film Happy Feet was released more than 7 years ago, and that's a fantastic looking movie, Matt. So I challenge you on that one.
You're not wrong.
I feel so stupid for getting that movie wrong. I'm like a big Miyazaki fan and a big
Are you
Ghibli fan? And
Are you?
Yeah,
it's okay.
wrong. I'm so embarrassed.
It's because you just said Howl's Moving Castle. It was still on your mind.
I know, it's true. Ryan, you have young children. Is your daughter a fan of Studio Ghibli films?
Haven't really. She hasn't really found anime yet, but the closest thing she does love Pokemon. But we haven't gone here yet, but I have to say this is like kind of the equivalent of Pixar deciding to just make a traditional animation, like a hand animated film.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like
that's a great comparison.
which
Yeah.
actually I think would be cool to see. So I think this is I'm curious to see Studio Ghibli's take on a CG film. Like, can they bring their same sort of flair and talent to really making a CG film that stands apart from the million other ones from motion picture houses, big and small? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. There was one quote that I wanted to highlight here that I thought was pretty great. So this is a very Studio Ghibli sort of quote in that it's just so pure. Producer Toshio Suzuki says, "Aya is the story of the world's smartest girl. Aya is cheeky but somehow cute. I hope she is loved by many types of people. By the way, I thought Aya reminded me of someone, and it turned out I was thinking of Goro himself, who is the director of the movie. When I told him that, he looked bashful."
Aw.
I thought that was very good, very cute. We have one more story that we're going to cover, but before that, I did just want to shout out one more time. You have 10 minutes still to donate with us to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. You can donate right now to help fight racial justice. Just look up there right at the top of the comments section, click that donate button, throw down some cash. That would really be cool of you. Last story that we've got here, probably the most important story that we're going to cover maybe a week on IGN. I don't want to oversell it here, but there's a new update to The Sims 4. It adds a lot of different things. You know, there's a few different classes, or not classes, but like a few different occupations that are coming. It fixes a lot of little things. But one of the most important things that it introduces is that it is now making Sims pee fire. It is a stream of fire when Sims are peeing, which I think is hilarious and also potentially very
Perfect.
dangerous.
What were the
I mean, that's
so
why
many-
What were they doing last night? What's
Yeah.
going on?
You're right. So
Well, they
the
had to
Sims
have a
4
reason to add firefighters.
the Sims 4 subreddit is currently being flooded with reports that a new
Flooded.
bug is making their Sims flooded. Yeah, you know what? I didn't even do that one on purpose, but now I'm guilty of it too. That's 100% pun nerds on this show today. Being flooded with a bug that makes their Sims pee fire. People are claiming that this has something to do with the new tense emotional state Sims can experience, but until EA makes a statement, we're not sure where this glitch is coming from. I feel like Blank Canvas DJ over on the IGN comment section really summed it up when he says, "Fire piss." That seems appropriately 2020.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this update is bringing some new careers or jobs with it. Is one of them urologist?
No, but there is a firefighter job that's coming, and I think that are they related? Nobody can really say. It's impossible to know. I think that it's an unfortunate time to be a Sim, but apparently this flaming pea won't actually burn down your house or anything. There is no real physical damage that might happen. Yeah, I know. Do you sound a little disappointed, Matt? Were you hoping that this flaming your
Why
would
I
really
was
help?
hoping it would.
Wow, why call your game Sims if it's not an accurate simulation of what fire does to a house, even if it comes out of the human body? I'm just,
Maybe they're just mass hallucinations, which is why there's no consequences.
That very well could be. Matt Flyswatter over on IGN agrees with you. He says, if this is an unintentional bug, EA would be nuts not to leave it in as an option. Which I agree with. I think that'd be very nice. Why not?
They should just
Feature
add
or bug?
like
Why not both?
they
Yeah.
should add just a bunch of different options to make you pee different things as a visual feature.
Real.
Say more about that right now. What else do you want to see besides fire, Casey?
I don't know, rainbows, glitter,
Okay.
purple
All right.
smoke. I don't know. Think of
Sure.
all the trails in Rocket League, but you're peeing them.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great. You actually came up with those very fast, which I wasn't anticipating. So well done.
Checkmate.
I lied. We do have one more story, and it's not really a story so much as an opportunity for me to give my friend Casey a little soapbox here. Slay the Spire will be released on iOS sometime this month, coming to iOS devices for $9.99. It's a card-based roguelike that I know Casey has put just an obscene amount of time into. Casey, make a case.
Yes.
Why should people be playing Slay the Spire?
Make a
All right,
case.
so
See.
Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire was in early access on the PC for quite a while, but came out on the Nintendo Switch last year, and I have since put in more than 100 hours into this deck building roguelike game. It was actually, besides Monster Hunter World, my most played game last year, which is kind of crazy
really?
considering I also played Fire Emblem and Pokemon. So it's great.
So review.
Basically, to sum it up, basically to sum it up, you build a deck with one of 3 different characters, and your deck starts out every time with a very small amount of cards. You have like your basic shields, your basic attacks, and then a few unique cards that are unique to that specific character. And each time you play, you unlock more cards and more relics, which apply passive buffs to you, so that the next time you play, you'll have a bigger pool to choose from. It's extremely strategic. You are choosing how to build your deck, and each character's deck can be put together in so many different ways that every time you play, you feel like you're playing almost a different type of game. And to play from start to finish, if you don't die, and depending on how long it takes you to make choices, could be between 2 to 5 hours. There's a ton of replayability every day. There's a new challenge, and each character plays very differently. It's extremely good, extremely challenging. If you like really strategizing everything you do, this is an awesome game. It's $9.99 on iOS. It will be in June, which is an amazing price for this game. It is the PC version, so you're getting everything that you would get on PC or on consoles on your phone, which is amazing. And I know it's only coming out for iOS now, but they are planning to release it on Android. This is the developers Megacrits. They decided that they wanted to release at least one phone version that they have ready now, even though they don't have the other one ready quite yet. And we should get an actual release date this weekend during Guerrilla Collective's presentations, which you can watch on IGN.com.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I put this story on the docket today, because I knew that you would just knock it out of the park with your pitch for that. So this is a game that Casey and I have talked about on Nintendo Voice Chat Thursdays at 3 p.m. on IGN.com. Yeah, Casey has pitched to me several times to try and get me to play, and I've come this close so many times. And I've played a lot of Hearthstone. I've played a lot of Hearthstone on my phone. So maybe Slay the Spire on iOS will finally be the version that I cop to and really give it a shot. Matt, Ryan, have you guys tried this game out? Do you know anything about Slay the Spire?
I've heard
a total newbie.
likewise. Yeah, similar. Everybody who's played it in the office says you should play it, and I listened to them and I heard them, and I haven't followed through yet, but I will once it comes out on Android.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good. We have about 5 minutes left. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that you should play Slay the Spire if you haven't. Tom Marks gave it a 9 out of 10. Many other websites are calling it, perhaps facetiously, perhaps not, the best game ever, and I'm apt to agree with them. So
The best game ever. Damn.
Hardcore.
All right. Yeah. There's about 5 minutes left in the show. That's 5 minutes left for you to donate to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund with us. Right up there at the top of the comments section. You can jump in there, donate some money. Before we wrap out here, I just wanted to just check in with everybody before we go. Just see what everybody's playing. Just real quick. Let me know what you're gaming on. Ryan, why don't we start with you?
Well, as you can see behind me, my daughter's been playing Minecraft. She loves it. That's the last played game on the Xbox. But I'll tell you, I got after almost a year of waiting, because I ordered it last year, the day it went up. I got the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, which I have been having a ball with. East
No
of
kidding.
1 and 2. Yeah, one of my favorite action RPGs ever. I've been replaying that. Bomberman 94 is my favorite Bomberman of all time. That's super good. Yeah, it's that system. It's $100, so it's on the more expensive side for the mini console releases. But there's a lot of really neat, awesome touches that they put into the interface and to the whole thing. Like, there was clearly a lot of care and love that was put into it, which is exactly how it should be with these classic mini console releases. So yeah, I've been having a good time with the most obscure console I ever owned. Actually, no, I had an Atari Jaguar. That would be considered more obscure. But yes, the TurboGrafx 16 Mini has been making me very happy lately.
Nice. Matt Kim, what are you playing?
I'm playing The Last of Us 1. I'm doing
Okay.
a replay before the second one comes out because I
Sure.
haven't touched it at all since it came out the last time. So that's like, what, 2012? Turns out you don't remember games, even really good ones, like 100% when you played them 8 years ago. So doing it again. Having a
So
good time.
okay, that game came out the same year as Kingdoms of Amalur. You're
Oh,
going
yeah.
back and playing it
That
for
was,
the
I
first
think
time.
The Last of Us was 2013, if I remember right. It was the same year that
Might be
the
right.
PS4. It was June, I think, of 2013.
Mm,
Still a long time.
right.
How do you feel like that game holds up? You feel like it's still pretty playable?
Yeah, I think it looks. I'm playing the remastered one on PS4, and
Sure.
I guarantee if I didn't play it at all, and you told me and didn't know about it, and you just said, "Hey, this game came out on the PS4 natively," I would believe you because it looks great. The acting's top notch. The AI is way more janky than I remember it to be. Like really, like a lot of jank on that one, which I did not even
Yeah.
remember a little bit. But yeah, it plays fine. I'm also playing it on easy because I want to beat it as quickly as possible.
Sure.
Um,
That makes sense.
yeah. So.
Yeah. Casey, what are you playing besides Slay the Spire?
I know I sound like a broken record if you've been watching us on NVC, Nintendo Voice Chat, but I've been having problems with my hands and forearms, so I've been playing DDR again because it's one of the only games I have that you can play without using your hands, and I have been getting good again. I'm at the 3rd level of difficulty, and I recently beat a song that has been giving me trouble, and I'm very proud of myself. I'm
We're
also
all proud of you
watching...
too.
Thanks, I appreciate it. My cardio is not what it once was, but I'm getting back into it. And
Nice.
I'm also watching my partner play The Outer Worlds on the Xbox One. And
Uh-huh.
man, my Xbox One is so old. There's no way for us to plug in headphones. I had to go and find my A40 headphone mixer. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's a thing that you plug in with the mix amp, and I had to plug in an optical cable. But anyway, we figured it out and we got it working with headphones. So I've just been watching that game, and the writing is really good. It's really entertaining.
Yeah, that game kicks ass. Like, I feel like it's an underrated gem from last year. Personally, I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles. It's fine. You can hear my impressions over on Nintendo Voice Chat this week if you want to do that. But it is now 5 p.m., which means we have to sign off. That's all the news, games, and more that we have for you for today. Casey, Matt, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Remember, we're always on every day, 4 p.m., right here on IGN and YouTube. So maybe we'll see you tomorrow, and have a great evening. Bye, y'all.
Bye.